امروز به زبان انگلیسی برگزار خواهد شد. چنانچه سوالی برای سخنرانان ما دارید که در رابطه با تخصص آنها می باشد، از شما دعوت می کنیم که سوالات خود را چه به فارسی و چه به انگلیسی در قسمت چت با ما به اشتراک بگذارید و به پرسش های شما به ترتیب پاسخ داده خواهد شد. لطف بکنین ایمیلتون هم برای ما بذارین، چنانچه وقت برنامه تموم شد بتونیم بعداً به سوال شما جواب بدیم. بقیه برنامه به زبان انگلیسی خواهد بود. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another webinar series of the Iranian American Women Foundation, hosted by the Northern California chapter. I'm Shadi Razifard, and I'm the Northern California Mentorship Chair of IAWF, and I have the privilege to be the moderator for today's event. I know you all had to rearrange your schedules and your lives to be here today, and on behalf of myself and all my IAWF colleagues, I would like to extend a warm and heartfelt gratitude to you for making the time to join us. Thank you. Wanted to review some housekeeping items. The total length of the program will be about 90 minutes. All lines have been muted, apparently included my own. We have a panel discussion and an opportunity for Q&A at the later part of the event. You are welcome to type in your questions in either English or Persian language, and we will be addressing them in the order that we receive them at the later part of the program. Please do include your email in case we run out of time so we could address your questions after the program. If you have a request for our speakers to specifically address your question in Farsi, they will also be able to do that as well. So today's topic, the gift of COVID-19, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The title, even though similar to an old favorite spaghetti Western, but the heroes in the scenario are not galloping on their horses into the meadows, waving their hats at us. But the real heroes here are the medical professionals and all essential workers who held up and continue to hold up the fort. What's unique about COVID and has it stand apart is the universality of it and how it has not and will not discriminate against anyone. Regardless where we live, our race, sex, age, skin color, and our social economic status, we have all been impacted in one way, shape, or form. The impact has been felt in all aspects of our lives, and most, if not all, feel heavily weighed down by the added stress and anxiety. Yet, we have all either said or heard, I'm so grateful for the pause. Hence the topic for today, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Our intention is that you walk away from the discussion with some tools to help you better deal with the current circumstances. We have the great honor to have two outstanding panelists joining us today, Dr. Nelly Farnoudi Zahiri and Ms. Sima Hashemifar. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Dr. Nelly Farnoudi Zahiri is an author and keynote speaker and a licensed clinical psychologist who specializes in working with cross-cultural families in the greater Los Angeles area. Her expertise are in the area of social economic learning, social emotional learning, multicultural DEI consultation, interpersonal neurobiology, mindfulness, Eastern and Western integration, cross-cultural psychology, attachment parenting, conscious parenting, peace learning curriculum development, conflict resolution, peace training, and leadership. She's the author and founder of the International Center for Peace Learning, and you might have seen her on Mom Talk LA TV online and at Andishe TV. If you would like to learn more about Dr. Farnudi Zahidi, you can actually visit a couple of the websites that my colleagues have actually typed into the chat box for you. Dr. Nelly, momtalk.com, and don't hide it, flauntit.com. Ms. Seema Hashemifar comes to the world of mindfulness from a background in materials science engineering and many years in the semiconductor industry in Silicon Valley. From the mid-90s, Seema's interest grew in the areas of self-actualization and self-knowledge, and she studied different integrated methods of East-West philosophies. Her interest eventually led her to a transition to a different career, and in 2006, she founded Spiritual Harmony, SH Journey, and became a mindfulness coach. Currently, she's a global lecturer and teacher of mindfulness. In her practice, she works with individuals, couples, organizations, and conducts seminars, workshops in both English and Persian language. She participates in the Mindfulness Teacher Training Program at UC Berkeley's Greater Good Science Center. She recently joined the Department of Psychology at UC Berkeley to delve in the cutting-edge research of the science of happiness. She has also been granted participation in the Inner MBA program at NYU. If you'd like to learn more, please visit her website at seemahashemifar.com. A warm welcome to both of you ladies, and thank you for joining our program today. Ms. Hashemifar, let's start with you. In your view, what has COVID taught us?
Thank you, Shadi Jan, and the IAWF for creating this opportunity for me and having a panel on this very important issue. Also, thank you, the audience who have showed up on this precious Sunday morning. Before I answer your question, I invite all of us, the panelists and the participants, to join me on a very short grounding practice. So let's begin together. To settle down. Bringing peace to the body and mind. Wherever you are, let this be a time of pause. You may want to close your eyes and take a few full breaths. Feeling the aliveness in the body. Listening to the sounds around you. Feeling your body that is sitting here and breathing. You might ask yourself, what does this moment need? In a deep sense, offering love, offering respect, understanding, and compassion. Widening the field to include yourself and all those who in some way are left out. Sensing how all beings belong in our heart. And sensing all in our spacious heart space. sharing the intention that all beings awaken their wise and caring hearts, that we realize compassion, wakefulness, and that we can hold the world of all beings in our hearts. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be free. Now slowly bring your attention back to the room, noticing the sounds around you, and gently open your eyes. Thank you for practicing with me. Now, Shalijan, going back to your question, I saw this writing somewhere that said, when you can't go out, go in. So in depth of the ocean, we don't experience the same waves and turbulences that is on the surface. For some of us, COVID forced and encouraged us to reevaluate our priorities. Mm-hmm. It reminded us to be truthful to the values that we have. We paid attention to how we want to spend our time, how much as a society we are interconnected. And it created perfect opportunity for us to pause, slow down, and ask ourselves, what makes a fulfilling life? We learned how crucial social connection was. COVID taught us to focus only on the things that we can control and let go of the rest. Celebrate even the smallest victories during our daily life. That was very different. Sure. It gave every human the opportunity to be a hero, even if only in small ways, by wearing our masks or participating in physical distancing. Not so much social distancing, physical distancing. Some positives include the number of mental health support resources that were openly shared in the media by people, very well-known people like Michael Phelps, who openly talked about his challenges with depression. And that has helped to reduce the stigma around mental health. First-time responders, doctors, nurses, hospital staff, they also shared their emotions in public. Difficult emotions. They were normalized and humanized. Things that they were only discussed with psychiatrists or therapists are now out in open. Discovering our own character and the character of people around us. More communication with loved ones. Connecting with relatives that we had not heard from for a long time. We started chatting, we started FaceTiming, Zooming, appreciating little things, less purchasing of unnecessary stuff, focusing more on being rather than doing, and developing more skills like baking, cooking, and more time with nature.
Thank you, Seema Jan. I appreciate that insightful response from you. Dr. Farinidi Zahidi, wanting to find out what changes might you have noticed in your practice during this time?
Thank you so much for having me today, the Iranian American Women Foundation. Khadija and Seema John, Mariam John, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Seema John, for that grounding practice and mindfulness integration into this conversation this morning. It was heartfelt. I appreciate it. And thank you to all of you who are here showing up. I think one thing that I've noticed, sort of a shift in my practice, is how as a community we're showing up. We're showing up for each other, we're showing up for our children, we're showing up for our colleagues, and we're committing to this journey of the unknown and uncertainty with more clarity, with more understanding, with a better vision, and more agility and ability to really put the pieces together in cultivating peace of mind. So as you know, or some of you may not know, my work in the past 20-something years has been focused on peace psychology, the integration of peace into parenting practices such as attachment parenting, and just being involved with different platforms like the International Human Rights Consortium. And 20 years ago, I remember around this time gathering at a brain trust at UCLA and going through similar emotional experiences as I'm feeling right now with all of you, feeling that we're human beings dedicated and committed to compassion, that we're good human beings, that we are committed to this journey of bringing more peace into our communities, bringing more peace into our families, cultivating and connecting for the purpose and the vision of well-being, wellness, and perhaps human rights. And so here we are again, meeting many years later. This time, the story is the narrative is a little different. I think this global pandemic has pushed us into a space where attention and focus and the intent of cultivating peace is inevitable. And so I've noticed that in my practice. I feel that parents and families are coming, yearning for peace of mind, wanting to teach peace to their children, wanting to bring more peace into their families and homes. And it's no longer a luxury. It's no longer something that some of us do. Some of us who practice conscious parenting and mindfulness were attracted to. It's now, I think, of interest to all of us. And that has been a wonderful, wonderful shift that I've noticed just globally within my own community. And I'm very grateful for that shift. So I love your title, The Gift of COVID. And perhaps, you know, The Good, Bad, and Ugly is a catchy Hollywood title. But when I think of this title, I think of how all of us in all of these transitions and transformations during this global pandemic have been going through those motions, at times feeling good and feeling like we're doing something heroic, we're taking the right moves and the right action to move in the right direction, at times feeling bad because we are exhausted and unable to fulfill some of the needs both within and without, and at times feeling ugly because we made poor decisions in the midst of stress and trauma. Mm-hmm. And so I think collectively we're all in the same boat, which is a blessing. I think this is a history of time, or a history in time, that we're feeling connected more than ever because we're all in the same boat in some ways. We might have less or more suffering, but that oneness, or the intent for bringing oneness, is real. And it's a matter of life and death to all of us.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Thank you for that insight. Seema John, do you have anything to add to that question?
Well, starting in February, we were faced with people that had experienced job losses and increase in drug and alcohol because of the COVID, and also mood changes, panic, and anxiety. So I started seeing more clients because of that, and immediately started my Zoom because I felt the need of taking care of people. And as Nelly John said, we are all in the same boat, but some of us are in luxury yachts, and some of us are in rowing boats, and some barely hanging on to small draft wood in this storm. So as soon as the sheltering in place was announced in March, I felt this urge of helping people, having some meditation sessions for anyone in need around the world, and also some teaching sessions on anxiety, panic, depression, managing movements of the minds in a time like this, and building resiliency and ways to bring calm and peace to uncertainty. Now, 4 months later, it's heartwarming to witness that this group is strong, and I'm grateful to the teachings of the wise and mindfulness teachings that I was able to transfer to them. Now we have a very strong community, and they do regular meditation and doing the practice.
Fantastic. And thank you for the work that you do. Dr. Farnooty, we're going to come back to you. A lot of people are concerned with the first ever pandemic they have lived through. What are some of the things they can do to help themselves and their families? If you could kindly address that.
Absolutely. So I encourage families to look at VUCA, and sort of the term VUCA, which stands for V is for volatile, U is for uncertainty, C is for complexity, and A for ambiguity. And just try to find sort of a place of this VUCA times that we're living in. You know, it's a situation, a crisis we're in which if we're able to make shifts from the V of volatile or volatile, experiences that families are having into creating a vision. So volatile transforms into vision, and the vision is the vision of the family or children, or the well-being of families and kids, in which you're setting some values, or perhaps committing more to some of the values that you were practicing before, such as mindfulness, consciousness, and doing what's right, based on character and character development. And so those families who are able to make those shifts are dealing with this crisis easier. So if you're able to create a vision that feels grounded, that feels like your values are aligned with the current times and the current atmosphere and the decisions that you need to make that sometimes are very didactic. The decisions nowadays oftentimes boil down to, is it necessary or is it unnecessary? Am I hurting someone or am I helping someone? So prioritizing your focus on compassionate acts, which translates to suffering with the other. So when you're considering your neighbor's well-being, you're thinking of them, you're being compassionate towards them, and you're leaning into that, trying to reduce your neighbor's suffering. And teaching that to children, modeling that to children, and being able to move forward with this vision of compassion. Let's say compassion is one of the variables. I personally like the 5 C's, or the daily C's, the vitamin C's I talk about in my workshops or with the community that I'm interactive with. And I say, the the vision can be based on your values and what's important to you. My vision, my daily C's, my vitamin C's are compassion. So I start right off with compassion as I wake up in the morning with my meditation, with my grounding practices, and my intention for the day is how do I bring more compassion into today, my interactions, my relationships, and what I'm about to sort of experience unfolding in my life. The second C is collaboration. How do I collaborate more effectively? And so that's something we're seeing these days, needing it. There's an urgency for collaboration. We need to be able to count on each other and to rely on each other and collaborate, as you're doing on this platform beautifully. Communication, you know, the type of nonviolent communication that we can cultivate, we can teach, we can benefit from, and gathering information that we're bombarded with. So when families talk about, you know, moms who are really interested in getting informed and listening to news and being plugged in with news, sometimes, you know, we talk about how that's damaging perhaps your well-being, and that it's important. The nonviolent communication is a balanced communication, is a type of communication that, yes, you are being informed, but also, and you're being protective of yourself and practicing self-compassion by not overwhelming yourself with emotional experiences, which mostly with media and information leads to negative experiences. And so you're setting those quality, healthy boundaries so that you're practicing self-compassion in that moment. And culture is a big one, and that's the other C, in celebrating cultural differences and celebrating the culture of different opinions, tolerance, democracy, and all those wonderful ideas that we're dealing with today more than ever. I think that's been part of the daily cultivation of the vision for the family, for my family, and then conservation. You know, how do we continue to push for decisions that are better for the environment and are healthier for our Mother Earth, and you know, protecting and conserving and so forth. And it's not always easy. It's got its challenges. And so I think in helping families or practicing these visions and values myself, I always say, you know, be honest to yourself. I tell my clients, as long as you're doing your best 80% of the times, there's this sweet formula, the 5-to-1 ratio, 80-20. So 80% of the times, if you're doing a good job, if your intent and your heart is in the right place, you will benefit from it. You will experience more balance. You will experience more clarity. You will experience better understanding, more agility, and you will overcome these VUCA times.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think leaning into the as is and doing your best to practice those daily C's, vitamin C's, or what it is to make those shifts for yourself, to have clarity in your vision, to be able to have better understanding of the situation, to bring more clarity to your children, to help them process and get through a better understanding of the information and the news that we're constantly dealing with, shifts and changes, and to make kind decisions, to make good decisions that are sound-minded, sound-hearted, and good for our society, you know, being socially responsible.
Dr. Farnoohi, speaking of the season communication, a lot of families are at home. They're the parents, and also, you know, if people living under the same roof, they're holding a full-time job, homeschooling, and really trying to hold the fort on all aspects possible. What are some communication skills that you might suggest for them to best navigate the added stress or anxiety or the circumstances that they're dealing with?
So setting boundaries and routines is a big one. And I think when we first started with the quarantine life, It was wonderful. We were getting extra time. I often would check in with kids and say, what's been the best part of this, quarantine life experience? And they would say having valued quality time with their family members and having just more time to connect. I think as time progresses and we're moving into sort of this next phase of quarantine life, and perhaps, with the reopening of schools, we're seeing more of a hybrid learning where there's going to be still continued remote learning and so forth. Those boundaries and how we set up the home environment needs to be more intentional and more focused on bringing more peace into the children's lives so that kids' needs are met, but also the parents' needs and the parents' peace of mind so that you can have more of a balance and moving forward. And so staying social, being able to use your resources. There's so many nonprofit organizations, wonderful organizations now that are offering free services. I just noticed one posted by LA Magazine, LA Parenting Magazine, where some high school students and some tutors are offering free tutoring to children who need tutoring. And so I think staying connected with a community that is offering services and coming up with plans where kids would feel connected, they would feel safe, and they also have some times to refuel, their social emotional tank. One obstacle or one difficult sort of challenge for parents has been to what extent do we take a risk and allow our teenager or young adult or our middle schooler to socialize with friends, to see a friend, to go to the beach, to take on some of these more normal activities so that they're feeling more socially and emotionally filled and their social emotional hygiene is also being addressed. And I think that's going to be a case by case, family by family situation where you just have to be leaning into your parental intuitive sort of your parental instinct. And I think parents know when children are off balance and when they've lost their state of equilibrium as just as much as they know within how they're feeling. And I think they have to practice those small acts of kindness or whatever you want to call it to kind of fill their own emotional tanks as well as their children's emotional tanks. So perhaps taking a little risk and having play dates, but maybe with masks, with social or physical distancing, going on walks. I personally have been doing my best to try and bring some balance to our life. So safely, we're also getting back some emotional social hygiene and also the virtual, I think the virtual connection has been wonderful because nowadays families are having family dinners together via Zoom. They're having so much more connectedness through technology and feeling fulfilled. Honestly, I think the technology has been great in this area and virtual socialization.
You made a reference to making sure, instill that kindness, but is there anything else you would add? How do we speak to our kids during this time of pandemic? And also if there's any free resources that parents on the call could actually refer to?
Absolutely. So free resources would be the COVID19parenting.com. That's a free resource in Farsi language and has lots and lots of tips and ways that you can play with your kids at home and ways you can cultivate social emotional learning at home with your children, answering all the questions that parents might have and helping parents through COVID-19 and beyond. And I think that's a really good free resource that parents can use, as well as Common Sense Media. And that's with commonsensemedia.org. Their intention is to help parents navigate sort of the technology and the use of technology during these times, which I know many parents have complained about, you know, the too much screen time, too much video games, and how do we bring more balance into our children's lives, and perhaps put them in the right direction so that instead of playing Fortnite or some of these other video games, they're downloading mindfulness apps and doing yoga and doing some of these more well-being oriented technology-based services. And so commonsensemedia.org would be my suggestion for free resources. They have a great parenting community as well as educators community. If you're interested, you can take some courses and get certified and become a Common Sense Media educator, which I highly recommend, because in that process you benefit from gaining more expertise and understanding of how to navigate technology with children during this time and beyond. And so I think one of the roles that parents have during this pandemic time and moving beyond is the educational and media literacy, right? How do we take the information, filter it, set a tone and narrative that is going to benefit the children in cultivating well-being for them. So in other words, the filtering of information and news, having an intentional sort of tone, which is growth mindset oriented. So in exchanging, you know, sharing and communicating, parents, I believe, are socially responsible to make sure that children are constantly bombarded with hope and not fear and stress.
Yes.
And so sometimes that's difficult because we're all living under the same roof. And like you said, some of us live in a small apartment and it's hard to have those boundaries. But I think being intentional about it and making sure that you're coming up with specific strategic plans to get information and filter and give to children in a way that is hopeful, that is healthy, that brings awareness and not fear, anxiety, and stress. And oftentimes that's hard because as parents, you know, I'm a parent of 3 kids, and so I relate to this. As parents, sometimes we are scared. We are feeling frightened, and we are feeling like we are in VUCA times, and sometimes, you know, we get overwhelmed by it. But then creating a nice social buffer with your other parenting, you know, conscious parents, friends, and communities, where when you're feeling stressed, you're able to connect, you know, to talk and to speak your truth and to decompress and to feel better, so that you can come back with more self-compassion, more peace of mind, and then show up for your children in a way that is meaningful to them. But we are socially responsible to protect them from some of the extreme sort of trauma that is going on via the news and some of these online resources.
Thank you, Dr. Farnooty. My colleagues have entered all the websites that Dr. Farnooty Zahidi mentioned in the chat. If you want to take a look at them and use them as a resource, please do so. Ms. Hashemifar, we're going to come to you. And I know you've been having these workshops and a lot of people are benefiting from them. And what practical daily routines do you suggest for this chapter of our lives to put in place to help with managing our daily stress and anxiety that we might be dealing with?
Sure. One thing I need to mention is that self-care is not just holidays, massages, and satisfying the desire of the 5 senses. Self-care does not mean selfishness, narcissism, or disregarding others. It means welcoming yourself as the most honored guest in your heart, a guest worthy of respect and love. So that's set aside. We know that only one positive thing during the morning can set the tone for the entire day. In our sessions, we focus on short-term goals, just small things. And I tend to try to hack the brain with positive psychology. And doing that refrains from getting the students and clients into fight, flight, freeze. That is very normal in this time of pandemic. They tend to bring the issue, the tough, emotional, negative feelings to the frontal cortex of the brain, the part of the brain that does the thinking and creating and making right choices. Some of the daily practices that we do in our classes is to just write 3 things that you're grateful for in this situation. 3 things that you're excited about. And the reason that I'm asking them to write it is because it's going to stick for a longer time. Just talking about it is not going to be as effective. So we have a lot of writing to do.
Yeah.
And making a promise that I will check the news at the following time from the following resources for this many minutes. It's very important. And mentioning what I will not do today. I will move my body, do exercise. I use humor consciously. And I will go out and breathe fresh air.
Fantastic.
Connect at least with 3 people. And my invitation to the participants is doing it via FaceTime or Zoom, because it's very important to see the facial expression and the surroundings of our loved ones. And we also have daily routines for the evening, writing a positive sentence about our day. 3 good events that happened today. Something that I learned today. And in what ways I will make tomorrow better. And what am I looking forward to happen tomorrow? So these are the things that we have been doing, and fortunately it has shown good results.
Fantastic. Thank you. Dr. Farnudi made a reference, but I also wanted to ask you, our natural tendency as humans is to help and to reach out to our humankind. But how do we do that when our own tank is empty? How do we help others while we really don't have the bandwidth at this time?
Question, especially in our culture. Margaret Mead, the famous anthropologist, was once asked, what was the first sign of human civilization? And the person who asked the question was expecting to hear, when some artifact was crafted or some writings in a cave were found. But her reply was a healed human femur, a bone that was healed. She said this because it was a pure sign of protection, feeding, and care by another individual that allowed this healing to happen. So that is the sign of civilization. But we need to be grateful for the community around us that is rising up to help us. Finding the balance between serving the others and caring for ourselves is an art. It is truly an art.
Yes, and as you referenced, it's not an act of selfishness.
Exactly.
As we initially said.
Absolutely.
Right.
So we can face, if we're giving mindlessly and carelessly, we face burnout. We face a concept called compassion fatigue.
Compassion
fatigue and burnout are both traumas. And these are some signs of compassion fatigue. We may feel completely overwhelmed or hopeless or distance ourselves from the person whom we are helping. And our empathy level gets reduced and we feel sort of a pessimism, cynicism, and our sleep gets disturbed, and we feel resentful towards the person that we are helping, and we become irritable. We get sick frequently, and we get loss of joy, and we avoid the person, and we withdraw from the society.
Yeah.
So to manage this situation, we definitely need to have our daily, if we are daily prayer or meditation, it's crucial, vital. We need to maintain our boundaries. We need to stop periodically and do something that is different from just giving care, and bringing more pleasure to our lives, and take care of ourselves, and find support, find people who can help us in this task that we have taken, and keep a journal, because keeping a journal is very important. We're gonna express things in that journal that we don't usually talk about. So that's gonna be an outlet, a very healthy outlet. And maintaining a sense of humor, pampering ourselves, indulge in a massage, or listening to our favorite music, or reading our favorite book, taking a bath, and taking time for meeting with our friends.
Right.
Sometimes just, a small gesture, like putting our hand on our heart, or cupping our face, just to give ourselves some sense of compassion, or hugging ourselves.
Right. Thank you, Seema Jan. I see some questions coming in the chat privately to me. If you can actually send your include your emails as well. If we have time to address your questions, we'll be doing that. If we don't have time to address your questions, we'll be sending you emails to address the questions that are coming in. We would appreciate that. Dr. Farnudi, coming back to you, the world silver lining comes to mind as something, what positive things might have come. I know you have to some extent addressed that, but what has been sort of the silver lining of this all?
I would say self-compassion, the expansion of compassion for individuals, families, and beyond has been probably the most profound silver lining. I believe that deeper understanding of compassion and what compassion can do in the context of well-being and a society, I think that understanding has brought in, and it's brought a lot of awareness. So we have better awareness of compassion. And I've talked about self-compassion for the past 20 years. I've followed Dr. Niff's work at UC Berkeley. I highly recommend her work, by the way. The website is self-compassion.org. And when you go to the website, you'll see that there's a whole science. There's a whole science behind understanding of self-compassion, how it connects to well-being, how it connects to our relationships, and even, predicting the nature or the quality of the bond between two human beings. And so I have been taking the self-compassion questionnaire, and I've asked my clients to take it for the past many years, okay? And I highly recommend all of you to go to her site, self-compassion.org. There's a brief questionnaire. You can take the questionnaire. It's a free service, and you can get more mindsight and insight into your own interpersonal neurobiological being. Okay, and it's very, very powerful. It's profound, because you might think in the moment, no, I'm practicing self-compassion, but here you're sort of objectively evaluating it. There's a valid questionnaire based on science that can give you that time in, that reflective time where you're getting a better understanding of your healthy mind platter during these times of crisis. And so self-compassion is key. It's always been the key, because compassion is an inside-out process. Just like Dr. Daniel Siegel talks about, parenting is an inside-out process. And so if we're not cultivating, attending, and knowing what it's like inside and to have it inside, we can't share it outside and with others in connections and relationships. So first, a deeper understanding of self-compassion and compassion within and without. And thanks to COVID-19, I think we are doing this because it's, I think, connected to our survival. And I think there's an urgency for it. So we no longer can be successful, healthy, have well-being without it. So it's pushed us into this corner where we have to pay attention, we have to understand it, and we have to have resilience and grit about it.
Right.
And so that's first. And then the second piece is integration, which again, Dr. Daniel Siegel in a few books, he's mentioned sort of integration being so closely connected to well-being, awareness, insight, mindsight, and mental health and well-being. And so integration is basically understanding, differentiating, having better, deeper understanding of our relationships or pieces within, and then making those linkages and feeling whole, right? The whole experience, the wholeness. And throughout this process, because we've had to go through some rapid growth and rapid stress, I believe that we're moved into this space where there is almost like a post-traumatic growth transformation that we may be experiencing now, may be experiencing later, in terms of agility, in terms of grit, resiliency, and what the next generation will be, internalizing and keeping in their we space, the space between us. The me and we, and that we space. And so those are all the silver lining that I see. I have been, laser focused on integrating, for the clients I work with, and helping them integrate better, and helping my own family integrate better, myself integrate better. And I highly recommend that all of you take a moment to, like he said, through some of these practices, whether it's cultivating better sleep hygiene, getting a good night's sleep, because you need a good night's sleep in order to consolidate and integrate, having some focus time when you're focused on one thing and really paying attention and putting your mind into something without, being distracted and scattered. Having physical time, so exercise, having downtime. Like Sima Jun said, for me, my downtime is my meditation time. It's the time that I really go within, and I also integrate my self-reflection and all that together. So finding your way, your personal, individualized way to cultivate a healthy mind platter. And cultivation means you plant the seeds, you take care of it, and then you will experience growth and that growth mindset after taking care of those things that are important to you and your vision. So it's good.
Thank you, Dr. Farnudi. And my final question to both of you is, if our audience did only one thing and walked away from today's webinar with only putting one thing in place, Sima John, what would you suggest would be on top of your list for people to put in place?
It is to make the love that we offer to ourselves and the world perfect, without discrimination. And that requires not believing everything we think.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing a childlike beginner's mind to our daily experiences. A beginner mind that allows cherishing every moment.
Right. Thank you. What would you be on top of your list, Dr. Farnudi?
I think better understanding of some of the concepts we talked about. I would love to hear your feedback on your search and quest on self-compassion. Again, self-compassion.org. I would love to hear you do a little research, and perhaps within your family with young adults or teenagers, look up VUCA, the VUCA world, VUCA times, what we're actually dealing with psychologically, and how we can shift these conditions into more positive conditions where we're actually benefiting from that transformation growth that we're experiencing. And to be well, to stay focused in your well-being in a balanced way, and to show up every day for yourself first and then for others.
Yes. Thank you very much. You need to put on your own oxygen mask first before the person next to you. Thank you very much. That was very informative, both Dr. Farnudi and Ms. Hashemi Far. Thank you for all your knowledge and insight for sharing with us. I think this would be a good time for us to start getting some questions from the audience. We have a question from Mr. Behruz Ruzbe. If you can unmute him. Behruz John, Mr. Ruzbe, welcome. Do you have a question for our panelists?
Sure. Thank you so much for the great talk. I'm calling you from Huntington Beach in California. And I wanted to ask you for your advice to see, I lost my Patty June, my mom, 30 days ago. And it's been so difficult for me since I can't travel to be with them and to hold her hand when she was sick. And now that she's gone, I want to be with my family and participate in the morning with them. And it's been so difficult on being unable to basically from far away to deal with this and get some closure out of being at the last minutes with the family. So I wanted to see what kind of suggestions, what kind of advice you can give.
Mr. Ruzbe, thank you for calling in, and our condolences for your great loss. We're very sorry. Dr. Farnudi, what suggestions might you have?
Well, I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm terribly sorry, and I know how heartbreaking it is to lose a parent, as I lost one of my parents a few years ago, and so I know it's heartbreaking. Yeah, it's heartbreaking. We're in VUCA times. You know, we're in times of uncertainty. The grief process and how we're collectively grieving. I think for every individual and also collectively as a society has shifted. You know, the ways our rituals have changed. We no longer have those rituals to heal, to feel connected. What I can tell you is families who've practiced flexibility, I think flexibility is the big factor, the key factor in bringing closure and trying to make sense of the loss individually as well as collectively, and then doing what you need to do to take care of yourself and your loss and how you're going through this grief. I would recommend, you know, there are some virtual grief groups now. There's some free services. I can send that information to you.
Wonderful, thank you.
And yeah, there are ways that folks are connecting, you know, having some grief groups, process groups, also getting creative in meaningful ways to grieve with your family, and coming up with meaningful ways to feel connected, even though you're physically not connected, that you can bring emotional connection, you can bring ways that you can be there and show up for them emotionally. And yeah, I'm sorry that
appreciate it, thank you, that's very helpful. Yeah, I'm right now on the Facebook and just connecting with WhatsApp and Facebook and staying with the close family and trying to share some memories and trying to get some But it's so frustrating that not being able to use her Chile is coming out, which is the 40th day. That's an important day to remember her, and it's hard. You can't even have a gathering because of the COVID with the social distancing and everything.
Yeah, but again, I love that you are using technology in your advantage to share memories. Maybe you can have a ceremony like you know, some schools, they held graduation ceremonies in virtual space, and so creating ways to memorialize, to honor and celebrate, you know, I think might be one way to heal. And yeah, I will share some resources with you so that you can be connected with the process groups.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks very much.
Jose. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Khadija. Bye-bye.
Thank you. We have a question from Miss Roz Sohaili. Let's see if we can unmute her if she has a question.
Hi, so I am a college student and I've been home for the past 4 months. I was studying abroad in London, so I came back in March once things started shutting down there. And I will be starting my classes again soon this fall in an online format. And I'm a bit concerned about the shelter in place and kind of the sense of isolation from my peers that I'll be experiencing. So I have kind of a two-part question. How do I manage my anxiousness around this? And also, when we do go back to campus or back to the real world, how do I manage my anxiety of being around people and classmates, not knowing where they've been or how they have been managing their shelter in place and their well-being?
Thank you, Roz. Thank you. Thank you for calling in. Maybe you can address the first part, Dr. Farnudi?
Sure. So with college students, it's tricky because the reopening, getting back and being part of this hybrid model of education for every school, for every community is different. Even within sort of the LA County area, the colleges and universities have many different hybrid plans. I think one of the sort of grit factors that I've noticed with students who are managing their stress and anxiety well and who are moving forward with more hope, more resilience, more strength is the flexibility. And also to have safe options, to have several options. So expansion of plans. For example, I know a couple of schools that have 6 hybrid plans in place. So strategies, details around the strategic planning and how the students are going to go back and engage and maintain physical distancing and be safe and so forth. So knowing that you have more options and also practicing flexibility in the context of going back or getting back to the sort of somewhat the new normal in this reopening phase. And so back to, you know, within the family system, when communication is healthier, when there's more openness in communication, when options are more, so the parents are not as rigid and are showing more flexibility, we find that the parents who are being rigid, I think there is an echo. So parents who are being rigid are the ones that are causing a lot of stress and anxiety, and individuals as well. Managing your own stress and anxiety comes from, you know, making sure that you're connected to mental health services, making sure that you're doing what it takes to cultivate the healthy mind platter, which was, you know, using time to connect with someone that you trust and care for, a friend, mentor, and so forth, having some downtime so that you can experience groundedness, physical activity, making sure that you're getting your exercise, good sleep, hygiene with your social emotional sort of experiences and so forth. Now, it's easier said than done, and every individual is going to be different. So even though I go through a healthy mind platter sort of recipe, and we talk about what individuals are doing to bring more peace of mind to their sense of self and their well-being, every situation and every decision might lead to more stress and anxiety that perhaps if you have a lifeline, if you are connected to a student counselor or a mental health a professional, I think you'll be able to navigate and manage that stress and anxiety a little better. But every school, most schools, I don't know which school you're at, but most
Can I
schools
please
are
ask
now.
everybody to mute their lines, please? I'm sorry, we're getting some background noise. Thank you. Sorry for interrupting. Go ahead. Sorry.
So universities have COVID-19 resources.
We muted Dr. Farnooty. Dr. Farnooty, just wait a second. You've been muted. If you can unmute Dr. Farnooty, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
I unmuted.
Okay. Thank you. You are unmuted now. Thank you.
Okay. So for college students to access mental health services at their schools, universities is crucial. It's important to be plugged in to those services. And now with teletherapy and telehealth, those services are very accessible. So if you feel like your anxiety and stress is unmanageable and you're going through periods that you feel overwhelmed, I encourage you to tap in and connect and stay connected to those opportunities and support systems. And then with the family, with the whole family system and the parents being afraid of the children or the students' exposure, I think that requires some redesign and good communication within the family system so everyone feels safer. Of course, we're not going to feel 100% safe all the time, but I think managing sort of the risk factors and minimizing the risk and optimizing the protective factors brings a lot of balance and helps families make those decisions moving forward. But it's not easy. We're all struggling. Everyone's struggling in their own ways. I think the unknown, the uncertainty, the ambiguity is very disturbing, makes one feel very fearful of serious consequences and not knowing what the future holds. I imagine for college students, for you, not knowing, what you're going into, what is school going to look like, what to expect in the next couple of years. And I think knowing that you're in your cohort with a lot of students experiencing a lot of those same stressors should be a relief, should give you some comfort, and knowing that you're all in this together, that we're all in this together, and then we're going to trust our leadership, whichever school you're at, the leadership to make the good decisions so that you have options and you can practice flexibility and you can be successful. But it's tough. It's tough for everyone.
Right.
Thank
Definitely.
you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Sohaili. Let's unmute. We have a question from Ms. Laudan Mehran. If you could unmute. Thank you, Ms. Mehran. Thank you for joining us. Do you have a question?
Yes, hi. Thank you for this great presentation. It's very helpful. My question is, some people like myself don't like to ask for help. And what are some of the self-help and anxiety strategies for people like myself?
Great question. Seemajan, do you want to tackle that?
Sure. My first question for you, you're asking a question and I'm asking a question. If you don't feel comfortable, don't answer me, but just cultivate the fact that what causes you not asking for help?
It might be the fear of being the only one that has a question such as mine, or don't want to be singled out as um, as a person that is the only one that has that question, or a factor of being timid. All I think are general feeling of not wanting to ask for help, or even being a little bit too independent, that I think I can handle it all.
Okay. Okay. Just wanted to invite you to the fact that vulnerability is a sign of strength and not weakness. And in the realm of love, the person who is giving love, giving attention, is the one who benefits the most. So why don't we give the opportunity to the person who is taking care of the situation, calming our anxiety, to be blessed and gifted with this gift of service. So that's my suggestion for reaching out in order to give the gift of opportunity to help. But in order to have some strategies, there are some social strategies, getting involved in the communities, in society, in a choir, in a class. There are so many different things that right now we have online that you can get involved with. Talking to someone trusted, and finding your supporting community. Again, online communities are amazing these days. And if you contact me, I will definitely send you the list of the communities that can be helpful. Laughter, humor is medicine. Meditation, of course. And there are some emotional steps. Learning your triggers, what bothers you, and what causes the anxiety or panic. Just delving into that. And practicing acceptance. Surrendering to what is very important. Mm-hmm. And keeping a positive attitude. And also there are some physical aspects that we all know: eating well, exercise, getting enough sleep, and deep breathing. Deep breathing does magic.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Farnooty, what tips might you have for those people who are living by themselves during this time?
Self-compassion. You start inside out process. So the self-care, knowing what sort of, how to show up for yourself. I think knowing how to connect with others and have an awareness of your MUI space. So that's your space and your loved ones. Keeping loved ones close to your heart, knowing what relationships or what connections are toxic and trying to eliminate them, not in an aggressive way, but in a self-care, self-compassionate way. So healthy boundaries about relationships that bring you joy and the way that you feel connected to the other, in having the MUI space that is bringing you the ability to have more awareness, a better life, and happiness. Now that circle grows as you develop better well-being and better mental health and better, awareness, more awareness. And I always love hearing about Dalai Lama's sort of morning rituals, and that he starts his morning getting up at 3:30 in the morning, meditating for 4 hours until 7:30. And a lot of his intent and intention and sort of his focus in this meditation or this journey for this long period of time is to transform his own emotions. So kind of to have transformation of his internal state, his internal habitat. And I think that's just beautiful. You know, he's always been one of my favorite gurus in the field of compassion. And I love listening to him when he says, I work so hard every morning, you know, for several hours, so that when I show up for the world, I'm bringing authentic, real joy and happiness to my world and to the people that I am showing up for, including himself. And so when you know, when I hear Dalai Lama having to meditate for so long, that encourages me, that inspires me to want to meditate, to want to take those moments to deep breathe, you know, experience my breath, and to bring more calm and peace of mind to myself before I show up in my relationships, or before I show up as mom, and before I show up as a colleague and as a friend. And so that's, I think, a disciplined practice that we all could opt in and benefit from during these times.
Yes, thank you very much. Seema John, we have a question regarding how can I deal with people who don't respect the rules, like not wearing masks? If you could just answer that in a couple minutes, we would appreciate that.
Sure. Checking the state of your heart is the most important thing. When you're encountered with people who are not obeying the rules, see where you are coming from. Are we coming from teaching them a lesson, or reminding and informing them? That's very important. The person who's not wearing the mask may come from different state of beings. Maybe they have forgotten. Maybe they are using it as a political gesture. Maybe it's a sign of ignorance. So you and I, at best, can change our own way of behavior. And I remember Norman Fisher, the Zen master, says, don't have a great ideal about how things are supposed to be. Ideals can be poison if you take them in large quantities. So it boils down to us choosing our battles wisely. Some situations call for our taking distance and not getting involved. And sometimes you need to get involved, but speaking the rule pleasantly and checking our deep intention. Viktor Frankl has a famous saying that says, between the stimulus and our response, there's a gap. And in that gap lies our freedom. So if you are dealing with a very tough situation, emotionally charged up, worked up, there is a technique called STOP that we usually use in our teachings. The acronym STOP, S stands for just stop what you're doing. T stands for take a deep conscious breath. Focus on your breath. And by doing that, you reboot your brain and nervous system. O stands for observe. Observe your emotional and feeling state. And the P stands for proceed. Proceed from a heart that is at rest and not agitated. So we can use every situation that arises to wake up the rise in us. I hope that's helpful.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Hashemi Far. I see some questions coming in. We may not be able to answer any more questions at this time. If you could kindly provide your emails so we can address your questions after the program had ended privately to you, we'll be more than happy to do that. All of the contact information has been listed in the beginning of the chat. I might ask my colleagues to list all the contact information of Ms. Hashemi Far, Dr. Farnudi, and myself again, if you will, so it will be fresh in the page. Wanted to thank Dr. Farnudi Zahidi and Ms. Hashemi Far for joining us today. I think it was very informative. Seems like COVID is here to stay for a little while at least. Someone had asked if I could address something about COVID vaccines with my biotech degree. Again, please share your email, and I will be happy to address questions or the progress that is being made in the biotech industry. I think it's I wanted to, for those of you who may not be aware of IAWF, Iranian American Women Foundation, and its mission and the work that it's been doing, wanted to be sure to have an opportunity to share some information with you about the organization. The mission of the Iranian American Women Foundation is to provide a platform for empowerment and networking among Iranian American women and to provide mentorship to young generations of Iranians locally and globally. Since its inception in Orange County in 2012, the organization has empowered, inspired, and connected thousands of women. It has served as a home away from home, a community that celebrates creative, innovative, and tenacious women who are problem solvers and a force for greater good. This organization, like many other, relies on community support and engagement. We do encourage you to become a member and join the IAW Foundation community of women leaders, and also join as a volunteer in a chapter near you. Right now, we have chapters in San Francisco, Los Angeles, and New York. My colleagues are going to enter the website for becoming a member of IAWF. You can visit this website and choose a membership that best suits your need. You can also choose IAWF as your birthday fundraiser recipient if you wish to do so. I might just chime in and just share a little experience about my own involvement with IAWF and a lot of people who are my colleagues who are supporting this call also in the background. I have not only met a group of really amazing women who are up to being, making a difference in their communities, but also from a personal standpoint, managing the mentorship program, being the chair of the mentorship program in Northern California. It's an absolute privilege to be able to work with these young men and women and to connect them with the network of people who could shed some light on their path and answer their questions and lead them on their journey of their professional journey and the path they have ahead of them. I wanted to once again thank our panelists for joining us today and for sharing their knowledge and wisdom with us. Really a great gratitude and appreciation for Dr. Farnudi and Ms. Hashemi Far to sharing their knowledge. I feel we can go on and on for at least a few more hours with all the questions coming in. IAWF has started these webinar series. And the next program, we had one about 2 weeks ago on Am I Racist? And we hosted by the headquarters in Southern California. This program was hosted by the Northern California chapter, and the LA Chapter Rising Leaders have the next webinar on June 22nd, and the topic is a conversation about race in Iranian American community. Again, it's going to be July 22nd from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. Please be on the lookout on IAW Foundation website or Facebook page for the call-in information and more details. Last but not least, I wanted to thank each and every one of you for joining us and for taking part of your, spending a part of your Sunday with us. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much. I also want to give a shout out. There's a whole group of my colleagues in the background who are managing this show from the background. So many thanks to all the ladies behind the scene as well. Thank you again, Ms. Dr. Farnudi, Ms. Hashemi Fad. Stay well, stay healthy, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event. Thank you very much and have a blessed day. Thank you.